Susie, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show.
Knut, thank you so much for having me.
Susie is one of my favorite lady Bitcoiners, and she's a British journalist that occasionally writes for Forbes. And you just told me you had a column in a London newspaper called, what was that, City AM?
Yeah, so it was a London newspaper called City AM, which was really important because it went out to the financial district, and I had a column called My Two Sats, and I was able to rant about how broken the world was and discuss how Bitcoin could fix it.
That's fantastic. But now you're also the co-founder and the CEO of the Bitcoin Policy Institute in the UK, and that is not a small deal, is it?
Yeah, there's a lot to do in the UK. We're very, very far behind. There are so many barriers that we have. Education is a big one. Obviously, we have the BBC, you know how I feel about the BBC.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of perception that people over here have. It's boiling the oceans. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's for criminals. All the politicians that we speak to, that's exactly how they view Bitcoin. So unwinding all of that damage, trying to educate them properly, and obviously build up a company, because we're all volunteers. There's no Bitcoin money in the UK because legislation is driving out businesses. So because there are no Bitcoin companies, everybody that works for us are doing it for free. And so we have layers and layers and layers of difficulty when it comes to advocating for Bitcoin over here.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton to do there. But before we deep dive into the Policy Institute and what you're actually doing there, like let's give our listeners a bit of background on you. Like, what's the TLDR on Susie Wood? Like, what's your where did you come from? And you have a background in journalism, obviously, but can you tell us more?
Oh, I don't actually. I have a background in finance and IT, which is why I think I've been able to write about Bitcoin. So I started off my journey as an accountant, and then I know I don't look like one, do I? And then bridged the gap between finance and IT, and then became a Cognos developer. So every part of my year, my career in the city, the 20 years that I worked in TradFi, almost led me to this point. So then I started learning about Bitcoin, had this entire background that helped it make sense. And then I just had to write about it. And I started writing because it was the best way that I could process the information that I was learning.
Oh, so journalism had nothing that came into the picture later on. So I got completely wrong. Yes.
And it was almost an accident.
So how was it an accident? How does one become a writer from an accident?
That's a very good question. So once I started learning about Bitcoin and seeing the world very differently, I found it a real struggle to work in my fiat job. And I know that this is something that so many people would resonate with, because once you see through it and you can't unsee it, everything that you're doing suddenly becomes meaningless. And you're very aware that you're swapping your time for money, and money that is debasing. So I'd worked at the company for a long time. We were just coming out of COVID, which kind of made the situation even more depressing, because I think COVID broke most people. It did me, especially having to do the homeschooling and do a job that I really wasn't feeling as well. Everything about it was soul crushing. So I essentially begged my boss to make me redundant. And I mean, I really begged him, because I knew that if I wanted to work in Bitcoin, I wasn't going to be able to just jump from my job into a Bitcoin job. I had to create whatever it was that I was going to do. Well, you know this.
Yeah.
With what you can't just apply for a job and get a salary in Bitcoin. You've got to make it happen. And because I knew that there was going to be this gap between making space and where I ultimately needed to be, I had to have a buffer. And so therefore I needed to get made redundant. So once I eventually got my redundancy, left my job, I was kind of just a bit like, now what? It was a really tricky thing to do because I had no clue what I was going to do. I just knew I had to leave, and I knew that it was the right thing to do, but I just didn't know where I was going to go with it. And I started getting these really intense feelings. Like, the only way that I can describe it is like an intense bubble in my tummy, and I had to just start writing. And the only way that I could find peace was to write down everything that I was learning, because there was no way that I could process it. And so I wrote, first of all, a CBDC piece, and I just posted it on Substack, and it's just like, whatever. And then I wrote an article, how Bitcoin could be key to saving the environment. Once again, posted it on a Substack, and just thought nothing of it. I just needed to do it as part of the process. But then I was on Twitter, and there was the editor of City AM, of Crypto AM, was talking about CBDCs. And I kind of said, "Oi, you're not being very balanced here. You can't talk about CBDCs as if they're a good thing." And then he said, "Well, could you do better?" And I was like, "Yes, I can." And so I sent him the article that I had written, but obviously I was under a NIM at that time. So that's why I was calling myself decentralizing, because I didn't want to be named. And he said that the only way that he would publish the piece was if I doxed myself. So I had this dilemma between not wanting to be known to anybody, but wanting to get information about CBDCs out to the City of London, because that's where the Bank of England is. So all the people that I wanted to reach were there. So I decided that it was best to dox myself. So I published that article, and then I thought to myself, right, I'm going to be really cheeky, and I'm going to ask him if he's going to publish this Bitcoin mining one, expecting him to ignore me and say no. And he was just like, "Yeah, sure, it's a good piece." So then he put that in there, and the rest is history. Because then he started reaching out to me, asking me to write, and then that's when I started my column.
That's a fantastic story. And yeah, I mean, it's true what you say. Like, it's you don't immediately get a job in Bitcoin, and it doesn't really work like the normal job market. My analogy is, my favorite analogy for becoming a full-time Bitcoin person is like you jump off the cliff and you figure out if you can fly on the way down. That's exactly it. That's what it feels like. And yeah, I had the luxury of having like sort of started this parallel career before I quit my job. Like I had already written 2 books when I actually decided to quit fiat forever. Like so I guess that choice was a bit easier, but it must have been tough, like getting fed up with all the fiat stuff in the midst of the horrible lockdowns and stuff, and just jumping off that cliff.
Yeah, and luckily I had a husband who believed in what I was doing, because if I didn't, it would be very difficult to say, by the way, I want to quit this job. I get paid really good money. It was part-time. It was local. Everything was provided for. There was no reason why I should leave it.
No.
None. To not know what I was going to do. And he's like, okay.
That's great. It was similar to my story, because I had a good job and no like on paper reason to quit but I had a supportive wife that, we made the decision together and just left, and I've never looked back and never regretted it. It's the best decision of my life, I think. Let's talk Bitcoin security. I mean, the first thing you have to do, like this is the best practices stuff, right? You have to take your coins off an exchange. Everyone knows that. You have to take custody of your own Bitcoins, but that means holding your own private keys. The easiest way to do that is to get a hardware wallet so you can keep your coins offline. And we recommend this little thingy. It's called a Bitbox. You go to bitbox.swiss and use code Infinity for 5% off this thing. It's our favorite hardware wallet. It's very easy to use. It's good on privacy, and it's good for all kinds of other reasons too. And another thing that every Bitcoiner should do is write down their seed phrase. So usually when you fire up a hardware wallet, you get a seed phrase, 12 or 24 words that do not only represent your Bitcoin, they actually are your Bitcoin, these words. The 12 magic words are actually magic. And you could use a pen, but I don't advise people to ever use a pen, because if you use pen and paper and your house burns down or something, that paper is gone forever. For that reason, this thing has been invented many times by many companies. It's a metal seed plate. And this one is from our favorite seed plate manufacturer, Stamp Seed. you get this beautiful hammer and you can stamp your seed into this metal plate. And this particular one, you can do your own design. Here on the backside, this has no design on it, but there's a beautiful everything divided seed plate that you can get. If you use code Infinity, you get 15% off everything on their store. So stampseed.com, go there and figure out more. And if you want to buy what we call a shit ton of Bitcoin, you should probably secure them in a multi-sig solution of some kind that have like more professional custody. And for that, we recommend the bitcoinadvisor.com. This is a bunch of happy Australian people that are more than willing to help you and handhold you into Bitcoin multi-sig custody. One key is held by you, one by them, and one by a third party. And you need 2 out of the 3 keys to unlock your Bitcoin. This is for Bitcoin inheritance and for people who want to buy, a shit ton of Bitcoin. So secure your Bitcoin. Go to Stampseed, go to Bitbox, go to the Bitcoin Advisor, and brush your teeth. So what is the Bitcoin Policy Institute? First of all, what's the origin? Like how did it become a thing? And what are you working on? Like what's the main goal of that institute?
It started when there was a big conference in Edinburgh, late 2022, and a group of people got together and realised that this was seriously lacking in the UK. I wasn't a part of that group, but they decided that they wanted to form something. And then it was actually the article that I wrote about mining and the environment that Freddie New, my co-founder, saw it, reached out to me and said, I've read this article, would you like to come on as our head of mining? And I thought it was a brilliant opportunity. So I co-founded the company with Freddie, and it was the head of policy, I was the head of mining. And we just started trying to move forward with it. So the UK is so behind. When you look at what the rest of the globe is doing, especially with what's happening in the US, we can't even buy Bitcoin easily over here. The same week that a Bitcoin spot ETF was approved in the US at the beginning of 2024, the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, made it harder for people to buy Bitcoin. They made the on-off ramps a lot more tricky, and they classed Bitcoin as a restricted mass market investment, which meant that they put it in the same bucket as meme coins and stable coins, which is ridiculous. So now they are categorizing Bitcoin in the UK as just as risky as a meme coin that someone can spin up in their basement. And this is what we have to change.
Yes, and in reality, the pound sterling is much closer to the crypto space than Bitcoin is. They are all pyramid schemes, and Bitcoin is not. And but we still have to get the approval of the masses. It's sort of necessary to hammer that point in, and it's a tricky one because everyone just confuses things. Like I see things still that sound like 2017 to me, like blockchain technology and fintech this and whatever, decentralized that. It's so tiresome, and it's like, no, you don't understand the problem we solved here. We solved the problem of something. We've found a thing that we cannot copy, and we found a thing that humans have built, but humans can't take apart again and can't break. It's like insane. It's like a time machine. It's like it's the biggest thing ever. It's like bigger than the internet. And people are like, ugh.
I blame the BBC.
You blame the BBC. What happened there with the BBC? Yeah, you pointed out at some point that they had made a series of factual errors in some article or a clip about Bitcoin mining, right? And
yes, it was every Bitcoin transaction or every Bitcoin payment uses a swimming pool's worth of water was the headline. And I know when you read it, as soon as I read it, my heart sank and I thought, oh my God. And at first I disregarded it and just thought, it's more nonsense, ignore it. And then there was something that got to me and I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this article, I'm going to prove it's wrong, and I'm going to see how far and how long it takes me to get a retraction. I actually genuinely thought that if I could prove it was wrong, that I would be able to get them to retract it. I was so naive. So I know, ridiculous. So I decided to put in a freedom of information request. And that was basically to find out how they fact checked the article, because I knew that it couldn't have been fact checked because it was wrong. And then they came back to me and said that the BBC are exempt from providing any information through a freedom of information request because they're exempt through art and journalism. And at that point, I couldn't believe it. So hang on a second. So the BBC doesn't have to respond to any FOI requests at all. Surely that can't be right. So I took that up with the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO, and that took me a good couple of months. And in the end, they had to uphold the BBC and say, no, that's exactly how it is. And I remember speaking to the lady who was delivering this news to me that there was nothing that I could do to get that information. I said, so where do I go? And I explained the situation and how wrong it was and how there was no way to hold them accountable and why couldn't they prove their fact-checking process to me. And I think when I was speaking to that lady, the penny really dropped that actually every avenue that you can take was just a blockade. There was no way you could go. So during that period, I'd been writing to the press office, the crypto correspondent, and the guy who actually wrote the article. So I'd been in that period trying to reach these people too, to try and get them to respond. Nothing. And then eventually the press office came back to me and said, oh, you can file a complaint this way. And I thought, it's funny because I've been looking into this for a long time and I've not found that avenue. And now all of a sudden, kind of 4 months later, you're presenting this option to me. It was really quite weird. So then when I logged onto the website, I had to put all kinds of, you're going to love this, all kinds of KYC data into it. They wanted my address to log a complaint.
What?
And I emailed the lady that gave me the information. I was like, is this correct? Are you saying that I have to provide? Do you know what? I'm, once again, very naive. I didn't even think of putting in a fake address. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But at the time, I was just so incensed. And I thought, you can't ask people to give you information like that just because we're trying to tell you that there's an issue here. So in the end, I found a workaround, did it over the phone, but I had to explain it to somebody over the phone. Painful. And then it goes off into a black hole and then they respond and they say, we're taking ages, we'll get back to you in 20 days. And you get another email, we'll get back to you in 20 days. And it's just backwards, forwards nonsense. In the end, they did respond. And the response was not, it didn't even correspond to my complaint. It was like I was talking about clouds and they were responding about trees. It was really weird. And so I had to then go back again and explain what they hadn't, and it was backwards, forwards. But it went on 13 months like this. And then they would come back and say, go to Ofcom. So I'd be like, okay. Every single time they told me to approach a different organization or go down a different avenue, I did it just to prove it would be a dead end. So I went to Ofcom. I just get a standard email response. Thank you for your information. We'll get back to you if we're interested in taking this any further. And it's like, well, that's going to die. So I couldn't go anywhere. And then I was chasing and then they'd say that they couldn't do anything. And then eventually I got to a point where they said, right, this is the end of the road for stage 1 complaints. You can now go to stage 2. But during stage 1, I'd even got the Digital Asset Research Institute to write a 16-page rebuttal written by scientists. And even when they responded to that, there was such a disconnect between what I was putting forward to them and the response that I was receiving. So then I had to go to stage 2, lay it all out again. And it's so time consuming. And the phone calls, chasing, the emails, keeping on top of it, it really grinds you down. And if I wasn't so angry about how I was being fobbed off, I probably would have given up. But I just needed to see how far I could push it. And then eventually they said, right, you can take it to stage 2 complaints, lay out exactly why you're not happy. I did. And then that's when they came back and said, end of the road, sorry. And then they just cut it off. And then that's the tweet that I've got pinned, is how impossible it is to actually hold them accountable.
This it's super interesting because it should tell our listeners a lot here that because this is the BBC. It's one of the most respected public service media outlets in the world, if not the most respected one. I can't think of a national TV radio thing that is more respected than the BBC. What would that be?
Because it's global as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's been around since forever. And you're telling us that even when they're blatantly wrong about something, there is no way to do anything about it. Like there is no community notes when it comes to public service. So in my mind, what this means is what I've suspected always, that these state-run media channels cannot be trusted at all. Not even a tiny bit. It's all propaganda all the way down. So just don't trust what the government says. That doesn't automatically mean that you should say trust everything else that you read. Of course not. The government lying doesn't necessarily mean that Alex Jones is right about everything. That's not the point. But the point is just remove as much government interference from your life as possible, and you will have a better life. It's super simple. And so will everyone else, by the way. That's how we end wars and stuff in the end, by just cutting off that parasitic class. It's horrible. And did you hear about USAID when they were the second largest funding funder of the BBC, and invented stuff like the threat to democracy? That whole narrative, it's fabricated, and it's all of these things unraveling. It's so fascinating to see. And as usual, the Bitcoiners were right all along, about all of it. Yeah, and it's horrible.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what was also interesting about the source of the article? Is it was written by a Dutch central banker, our favorite guy, Alex de Vries. He had been discredited in 2018, and they didn't even disclose the conflict of interest. And those were 2 points that I was trying to point out to them that they completely ignored. They didn't accept that that was a conflict of interest, that he was a Dutch central banker, and obviously central banks see Bitcoin as disseminating the banking system. That apparently wasn't a conflict. And the fact that he'd actually been discredited and they couldn't prove how they'd fact-checked it. It was provably awful from beginning to end.
Yeah, central banking is the main problem that Bitcoin solves. Bitcoin is the remedy to the disease of central banking, which is why they have such a hard time wrapping their heads around it. No, you are the cancer. We're the cure. We're the chemotherapy here. No, it's so weird.
Oh, can I just say one other thing about that, about going on bad incentives as well? So with media, everything's about clicks and wanting people to read the information. And so when I write an article, if I write, which I don't very often because I'm just not interested in number go up, but if I do write a number go up article, it can take me a couple of hours. I'll chuck in a couple of charts and it will get loads and loads of views, which I will then get paid extra for. If I go and write a Bitcoin mining article where I've gone out and researched it, organized interviews, spoken to 4 or 5 different miners, put it into a document and it will get very few views and I'll get paid the same amount of money. So I'm incentivized to write the clickbaity number go up articles because they're easy and I get paid more. I'm not incentivized to go out and find the information and to try and share people's stories. So with this BBC research that I did that took me 13 months, I didn't get paid a single penny for that. And the one article that I did write on it got retracted. So even within a couple of hours as well, which was quite bizarre because I actually posted it about 11 o'clock UK time. It got taken down by about 6 o'clock, 6:30 US time, I think. And it had already gone through legal and senior editors by that point.
So immediate follow-up question there. If you had no financial incentive to do this, what was the incentive? Like, what compelled you to do the things? Because this is super interesting to me, because as Austrian economics points out this very clearly, that financial incentives aren't the only incentives. People do things for many different reasons, financial being one of them. So what compelled you to write the article?
Purpose and truth.
Yeah, which are both noble causes. And I think that Bitcoin, maybe it doesn't incentivize to do these things, but if Bitcoin can provide you with financial stability and security, which it can if you hold it for long enough so that you know that you're going to be fine. What happens is you free up time for yourself to do things like search for the truth and do more noble things in general. Do you agree with that?
Yes, except I don't have the financial backing.
Wasn't saying that you did.
No, but like genuinely, like I live on a shoestring to be able to do the right thing. I've had to completely separate myself from the fiat system and not be motivated by money in any way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, I never have been. It's not something that's ever really motivated me, money. I don't know why, it just doesn't. But I don't have the financial stability that I would like to be able to do those things that you suggest. But I have children and I see the world that they're going to inherit. And I can't stand it. I can't stand how broken everything is. And there is nothing better that I could spend my time on than trying to make the world just a little less shit.
No, I echo that completely. And I didn't mean to go into your financial situation. That was not like the point. It's like, do you agree that Bitcoin can, if used properly, like help you do even more stuff like this in the future, or like at least help you feel more confident in what you do?
Without a doubt, if money didn't even have to factor into my life and I didn't have to worry about paying a mortgage, paying the bills and all the things that, you know, kind of force you into that slave trap. If none of that was a factor, I would absolutely dedicate myself to doing this, no question. I wouldn't be sitting on a beach sipping pina coladas, put it that way.
Only occasionally, I guess.
Sometimes,
yeah,
I would have the occasional holiday.
Yeah. So the Policy Institute, like, tell me more about that.
Bitcoin Policy UK.
Yeah. Bitcoin Policy UK. That's I keep saying the wrong thing here. Bitcoin Policy UK. Like, who are the people you're talking to? Like, and how do you get in touch with them? And like, how does it work?
It's very difficult. Very difficult. And so we try and build connections. Last week we had a really good event that we put on in London called a Bitcoin Policy UK, put it on with Cartwright and Axiom. And we invited policymakers to come and speak. So we had a representative from the House of Lords. We had a current MP, an ex-MP, and we had businesses there. So that would have been unthinkable 6 or so months ago. So the people that were speaking and the people that were interested are the people that we're trying to reach. It's a very slow process. And they were speaking to businesses about how it's a risk not to have Bitcoin. I mean, it's a career risk not to look into Bitcoin. And all of these narratives are now starting to be discussed. But it's tricky, it's difficult, it's hard to educate. But when we were able to speak to these people, there was one particular MP that came along to speak. And he brought his researcher with him and that I was able to have a chat with. And so just 5 minutes after chatting with this guy, he was completely fascinated by Bitcoin. He didn't know anything about it. He thought he did, but he didn't. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but basically it's just a hard slog, trying to reach out, trying to educate and talking to people while putting on events to show them the art of the possible.
Yeah. Don't worry about not answering the questions. I'm super lousy myself at answering the actual question that someone poses. I always rant.
No, you're not.
About something.
Do you remember that one? Hey, you got to come up with one reason why KYC is good. You came up with a brilliant response to that.
Why KYC is what?
I said, you've got to at least argue the other side, why you would need KYC. And you just went, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. No, it isn't. No, to me, it's obvious that KYC is no good because like it defeats the very purpose of money. The purpose of money is to be able to facilitate trade between people who don't trust one another. Like, so who don't, if you know the person, know your customer, like, which is literally what KYC stands for, then you don't need money. You could just trust them. Like the whole point is that it facilitates trade between people, between enemies even. So, well, I don't get it at all.
No, I do agree with you. It was just very funny. There was no way that you were going to argue the other side.
No, I wouldn't. Like, and to me, like the most important thing a politician could do in terms of like helping Bitcoin adoption is scrap all capital gains tax, because that's what's necessary to enable people to use it as money without feeling as if they were doing something criminal while doing was just sending a string of numbers to one another. Like, I don't want to feel like a criminal sending a string of numbers or a text message to someone else. But that's the way the law functions in most European countries today, and it's awful.
Well, the worst thing that's been introduced is the FATF travel rule. So that's something that connects all of your information to a transaction, and then the information travels with the transaction. The problem with that is it then becomes like a honeypot for hackers. And we've seen real world examples where they can't look after our data. There's no way I would trust them to look after our data. People get hold of that, and then it becomes a real world issue where people actually become physically harmed.
Absolutely. I heard a story about this in Amsterdam a couple of years back. A guy who told me about a small village, the village he grew up. I'm getting this story wrong all the time, but the essence of it is correct. There was a voluntary counting of the population in that town where they gave up some information, including what religion they belonged to, and then they kept that in a church somewhere or a public library or something. And then the Nazis invaded, and some person had the foresight to burn down that library or church or whatever it was where the information was stored. So he basically just burned down the honeypot, and that town then had like 40% more Holocaust survivors than any neighboring town. So it's super dangerous to keep information about people in a centralized place. It's as you say, it's a honeypot.
Yeah. And the problem with this FATF travel rule as well is that they actually had it in TradFi. So it's been around for over a decade. And yet the money laundering stats that they cite all the time, which is 3 to 5% of global GDP, which hasn't changed for over 20 years. So I don't know if they're either not registering it properly because they don't know, or if their rules haven't made any tangible difference. I can't work it out. But what we do know is the rule didn't work in TradFi, and now they want to bring it over into the digital asset space. Insane.
Yeah, does that have anything to do with like the $10,000 limit thing that's been around since the 70s, when $10,000 could actually buy you something?
There are limits for the travel rule, and I think it does depend on the jurisdiction, but it's much lower. It's like 1,000.
Yeah, when I see that sign, I giggle and I think to myself, sure, take my toothpaste. I have my 12 words. Because like, if you know what you're doing, you can cross any border without having to worry about any of that. But Bitcoin does not exist your Bitcoin does not exist in one country. It exists in all countries. It's just the ability to unlock them that it's personal to you, right? They got it all wrong. And like, that's what's so silly. Like, it's always this square peg in a round hole thing when it comes to policymakers, because they're trying to box Bitcoin in when it really can't be. Like, because money is information now. Like, it always was, but it's bleeding obvious that it's just information at this point. Always blows my mind when how incompetent the decision makers are.
Terrifying. They really, really don't understand. I thought for a long time there were conspiracies and that they knew what they were doing and they were deliberately being shit. But no, I've come to the conclusion. I think it's pure incompetence.
Yeah, never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity is the saying, right? I love that.
So it's so true.
Yeah. And shit flows downstream is another favorite. Like if there's an idiot on top, like the entire institution is fucked. Like that's just what happens.
How do you unwind that damage when people have been conditioned by what they see, as you said, in a trusted media outlet? That is how all of these MPs and all these policymakers have formed their opinion on Bitcoin. How do you capture every single one of them and speak to them? So earlier this week, Freddie and I actually went and spoke to a politician, and he spoke to us for a favour for a friend. These are the kind of things that you've got to do. He openly admitted he didn't want to talk to us, like at the end, not at the beginning. He was polite enough to wait until the end. But he was utterly fascinated by everything that we had to say. And we smashed through every single preconceived idea that he had. And it's actually potentially going to lead to some sort of policy change. Like it could be huge. I can't say too much about it. But the fact is we had to go up to London, organise a meeting, have a one-on-one chat for an hour. You can't do that with every single person. I mean, you can try if you've got the opportunity, but it's exhausting and it's hard work.
Yeah, of course it is. And this is interesting because this makes me curious. Like, what makes you think that this path is worth the effort, as opposed to the just doing Bitcoin anonymously and like not making a big deal out of it and not reporting anything and just not trying to change any politics or anything, but just use it as the fuck you money tool it can be? Like, why did you choose the route of like trying to influence decision makers instead of like just avoiding them?
There's a couple of reasons for that, actually. First of all, I'm pro-choice. I think people should be able to choose. We can't even have... I'm not a fan of the ETF. I'm self-custody all the way. But I do think that people should be able to choose. And I do think it's important that people should be able to have the best performing asset of the decade in their pensions or in an ISA or in some kind of tax-free vehicle. I don't think it's right that you're able to purchase a spot ETF, Bitcoin spot ETF in the US. You cannot buy it here. Over here, they've made it so difficult that everybody's buying MicroStrategy as a proxy. And that's I think it's probably one of the most sold stocks at Hargreaves and Lansdowne for that very reason. And so they're driving people to, one, not understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. It means that crypto scams then get lumped in with Bitcoin, and we need to create that separation. It has to happen. So that's what. So from an educational point of view, it's important. From an access point of view, it's important, and from an energy point of view, it's very important. So over here, we spend nearly £1 billion a year on curtailment of wind. So what happens is we build out renewables because apparently that's what they want to do. I mean, why they don't go down the nuclear route, I do not know, but we are where we are. So they build out all of these wind farms. You often see that the actual windmill isn't turning, and that's because they build out these wind farms to max capacity. And then when the wind is really blowing, the grid can't take the electricity. So they pay the wind farms to switch off. And so that then goes on to our energy bills. And we've got the highest energy bills in the world. I mean, I know a lot of people that can't even switch on their heating. And I'm not kidding. It's crazy expensive. I mean, we only put our heating on in the morning and then run everything off a log burner because we can't afford to have our heating on. It's insane, the prices. So we want to get Bitcoin mining incorporated into our renewable infrastructure, because obviously, as you know, it's the demand responsive flexible load, it's instant. And we will not only save the curtailment costs, which as we build out more wind farms will only keep growing, but we will also be able to generate another revenue stream by using that wasted or curtailed energy to mine Bitcoin. It's win-win. So basically, it helps with the decentralization of the network. So there's plenty of reasons why we have to get them to wake up, because our governments are paying these wind farms. And while that incentive is there is no incentive to look at a better way of doing it.
No, and I have been to many of these places where the wind farms are just outside, like Grimsby, for instance. I was working for a shipping company that operated crew transfer vessels that took out technicians to wind farms. So I've seen lovely British towns such as Grimsby. It's a wonderful place. Sacha Baron Cohen even made a movie about how beautiful that place is, and I know exactly how this works. And one of my proudest things about my writing career here is that I wrote an article about exactly what you're talking about back in 2018, early 2018, like seeing all these wind farms and so much energy being wasted when they could just put a container of miners next to the farm and store the energy in this monetary asset instead. And now seeing this play out and seeing actual things like that being installed, it's just amazing and mind-blowing to see it. It's like, yeah, Bitcoin is doing exactly what we predicted it would a couple of years back in terms of number go up, in terms of this being this renewable energy motivator, all the stuff, right? And it's great to see. Absolutely.
And also, if you want to have Bitcoin, but you want to interact with the real world, so you want to turn your Bitcoin into a house, or you want to turn your Bitcoin into paying bills, because the on-off ramps in the UK are so difficult, for people to have Bitcoin and then use it in the real world, we have to have a much better system, because it's harming people. It's actually hurting people. So for anyone who's willing to go peer-to-peer and goes through all the non-KYC stack Bitcoin, that's not for everybody. And if we want more people to actually take Bitcoin on, or just have some skin in the game and actually start their learning journey, it's got to be made easier, and it's got to be more mainstream.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So follow-up question to that statement is Bitcoin for everyone, or is Bitcoin for anyone?
I say that. I see. Not anybody. But the thing is I understand. I do want people in the UK to have choice. I just do.
So, but not your keys, not your coins still apply though. So it doesn't really belong to you. It belongs to the exchange. I find this so insanely fascinating, because the way I see it, there's three layers of ownership. And ownership, the word ownership itself is like the most superficial one, because it's between you, it's your legal relationship to a thing. So you can own a car, but someone has stolen it. So it's in the car thief's possession, but it's still yours legally. But you don't have any control over it because it's stolen. And right now it's in the possession of someone else. So possession is like one layer deeper than ownership.
Well, I think in the UK, possession is 9/10 of the law.
Is it? What do you mean by that?
I mean,
don't understand that.
If it's in your possession, then that's it.
Oh,
I mean, obviously.
You mean like the African gold and the gold from the colonies in the central bank? It's definitely the UK's possession.
I do understand. I really, really do. But everybody has to start their journey somewhere.
Yeah. I just getting to the third layer, which is even deeper than possession, is knowledge. Because all owning, when we say owning a Bitcoin, and we mean like self-custodied Bitcoin, all we're saying is knowing a string of information. Either knowing the location of a private key, or knowing the actual private key, or the 12 magic words or whatever. It's just a string of information in your head. So it's even deeper than possession. Like, you can't very easily take it away. You need to know it's there first, and you need to know how many Bitcoin the information unlocks and all sorts of stuff. So it flips the very notion of ownership on its head. And this is, yeah, I'm pro-choice too. I just think that the reality of owning a Bitcoin being so much more than owning a paper that says you own Bitcoin. Like, I still would like to advocate for every single boomer in the world to do their homework and actually own the Bitcoin instead of just owning the stupid paper.
And I started off, the first time I bought a tiny bit of Bitcoin was because I wanted to buy some Dogecoin. And so I know. And so I went on to an exchange trying to figure it out. And it was part of the process. Like, how do you buy this stuff? What is it? Like, why is it different to TradFi? And that's what sparked my curiosity. And then obviously, like, have a little bit of a shitcoining phase. And then you kind of like, so it's even worse than just buying Bitcoin on an exchange. Like, I started off buying shitcoins on an exchange. And then, but that's how you learn. You kind of, you slowly start to get sucked in, read, you learn, you lose a lot of money, it can be painful. You have to go through it. And I don't think telling people who have been completely trusted third parties their whole entire life, that all of a sudden you've got to take it off an exchange, you've got to do this. It's slowly catchy monkey.
Yeah, there's a grain of truth to that. Like, the danger I see in that is that these people will never learn like what it truly is. Like, they will think it is something you can own when it's really just a number. Like, it's so weird. What made you want to buy Dogecoin?
I can answer that. So, the very reason I hate shitcoins, it's because I read an article. So what they do is they have these huge marketing departments that pump out all this bullshit, try and convince people of things like Bitcoin is for boomers. Hey, we've got this new shiny, amazing shitcoin that you said, this is the future. And then they have a lot of money behind them that basically put out all of this information, convince people that, but it was right at the beginning, and I was just learning, and I didn't have a clue about any of it. And I'm actually really glad I went on that journey, because now, knowing what I know and knowing the process that I've been through, my conviction is even stronger.
Yeah, that's where that road inevitably ends for everyone who's tried shitcoins. I mean, shitcoins can be fun and lucrative if you have no ethics and you're the founder of one. It's like, I saw Corey Clipston talk about this the other day, and it's so true that there are so many layers upon layers of people who groups on the internet, people who think they're insider traders when they're just there's always a bigger fish, and it's the founder at the top who does the final rug pull. And that's always the case with all the shitcoins, because they're all centralized. They're all pyramid schemes. That's literally what they are.
That's why policy in the UK is really important, because the FCA have lumped them all in together. And if we don't exist, other organisations like Crypto UK, the Digital Pound Foundation, they will be giving their information to the government. So we have to be here.
Yeah, I've seen some of this from the inside, actually, or from some type of inside. This is when we were forming the Free Madeira Association, and we had a meeting with the president of Madeira, and some shitcoiners got, somehow the information leaked to them that there were some Bitcoiners doing something with the president, and immediately they wanted to get on board and pile on and put in a lot of money to like legitimize their shitcoins. And luckily this group was, untouchable.
So talking about being uncorruptible, and that's exactly why we have worked for 2 years completely unpaid. because the likes of the Digital Pound Foundation are heavily funded by Ripple. You've got Crypto UK, who are funded largely by stable coins. And so their funding is huge. They have a lot of money. We have none, but they also get agendas pushed through them by these companies. And so a lot of these stablecoin and shitcoin companies are paying for influence in Parliament. And there's no one there to stand up against it and say, actually, this is wrong. But the problem is because there's no money in Bitcoin, and because there are very few Bitcoin businesses in the UK because of how poor the environment is, it's very chicken and egg.
Yeah, there is a lot of money in Bitcoin, but it's not money used for marketing Bitcoin. Like there's no, and this is sort of why I tend to be on the more anarchist side of this thing, because I think that anything that tries to be like influencing politics or something like inevitably gets corrupted. And it's not to say that what you're doing isn't great. Of course it is. And I don't believe you will be corrupted, because I know you, and I know you can't corrupt Susie. I think that at least that many of these initiatives have a high, they are a high risk of being captured, because they can be. Like Bitcoin is resistant to that because it doesn't have, like, the Hydra has an infinite amount of heads. You can capture one, but there are more of us out there. Like, it's going to be super hard to catch all of us. Like
I see it happening in the Bitcoin space. I see how it's happening in the Bitcoin space, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, I see Bitcoiners simping for politicians, for instance, and this in the US. I mean, this how great it is that Trump is doing this or that, and to me, that's not a Bitcoiner stance. It's like the other way around. Like, these people should bow down to us, not like. In the end, that's if this works as intended, that will inevitably happen. Hello there, I'm Knut Svanholm, and I'm an international village idiot and author. These are my books on Bitcoin: Bitcoin Sovereignty Through Mathematics, Bitcoin Independence Reimagined, Bitcoin Everything Divided by 21 Million, and Bitcoin The Inverse of Clown World. These are now re-edited, redesigned, and available from the Bitcoin Infinity Store. I mean, look at that. Look at how your collection could look. It's upside down, but there they are anyway. But more than that, all of these books will be released for free, chapter by chapter, week by week on Noster. Also accompanied by a video that Luke and I will make talking about the ideas in the book, where we answer your questions, because you can sign up for the Bitcoin Infinity Academy and join courses for each and every one of the books and talk to us every now and then and get other perks, like a free set of steak knives. So go to the Bitcoin Infinity Store right now, get the books, sign up for the Academy.
The steak knives is only a maybe.
Oh, all right then. So what's your view on centralization of mining? Is mining centralized or not?
Yes, it's a problem. And that's another reason why I want it to be integrated into everything, whether it be renewables, wind farms, heating, everything. I want it everywhere, because it's the only way we're going to get decentralization. But there are 4 key areas that concern me. 1 is geography. 2 are mining pools. 3 is hardware. And the templates, the software, the templates, they all seem to be. So with the mining pools, I think that we can, and we are making progress with things like Stratum V2 and Ocean. I think that people are aware that it's a problem.
Ocean just mined its 200th block. Yay!
Let's say that again, sorry?
Ocean just mined its 200th block. So congratulations to Ocean Mining. Yeah.
And Bitax are doing brilliantly as well.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Really cool. And then you've got chips as well. Like that seems to be a bit of a problem with all the chips that are coming. There's only like 2 companies that seem to make them, and obviously all the hardware that's coming from China.
Bitmain being one of them.
So I do think it's a real issue. However, we know that Bitcoin is supposed to be anti-fragile. So this is just another one of those tests. I'm not too concerned because I do think that there are a lot of amazing people that are aware of the problem and actively working to fix it. And obviously with mining pools, you can just switch if a pool gets too big. But it is a little bit unnerving when you look at the meme pool, or the mempool, sorry, cut that out, Luke, at the mempool. And it's
no, meme pool is a good word. I think I have that in one of the books. Actually, we're not going to cut this out. No, cut other stuff out.
It's like foundry.
No, but if I may, address those 4 points. So I think the what you're doing is solving point number 1, the geographical decentralization. It does not solve mining pool decentralization as long as you don't teach these wind farm owners to that they're not really miners but hashing salesmen if they don't decide for themselves what block to mine on. Like if you have no say in that, you can't really call yourself a miner. That's the way I see it anyway. Like you're just selling hashing power to the actual miner. And what was the third one? Hardware. Yeah, that's a tricky one to get around. I don't think you necessarily need to get around it. There are some issues, and Bitmain has been a suspicious company all the way. I don't think they can do very much about like having their machines be so much better for themselves than anyone else. They sort of could do that with ASIC boost and stuff, and there's been hints at other things slowing down other machines than their own. But yeah, what can you do about that? I think it's more important to fix the other problems, really. And
yeah, I don't think they're all equal in their concerns. They're just the problems that I can see, and also, I mean, there's been some kind of like filtering of transactions from sanctioned entities. I mean, Marathon tried to do that.
Yeah, no, and they falsely claim that there are pictures on the blockchain of which there aren't. It's just it always requires a third-party website to interpret the data on chain that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, and then the arbitrary data can, by some idiot third-party magic, form a picture or something. But that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's just clogging the chain with unnecessary transactions that aren't monetary transactions. And the way I see that is like just as a real estate becomes worse, as the use case housing for real estate is worse because real estate is being used as money, which means that a billionaire buys up all the properties and then its living costs are super high for poor people. If that was solved by the money functioning, that it would solve both the billionaire's problem and the poor person's problem, right? But the same is true for money. If money is being used for anything but monetary transactions, it becomes a worse form of medium of exchange. Like it becomes a worse money for being used for other quote unquote utility. The utility is the monetary one, that you can trade it for anything else. Not that it should be anything else. You should be able to trade it for anything else. But I love the Ocean Initiative.
Do you think there'll be a time when houses are just sold for their utility value rather than investment? Do you think Bitcoin will fix that?
I think it already has. But the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So I think a Bitcoiner views real estate that way. A proper Bitcoiner would rather have X amount of Bitcoin instead of the house. Like the house is just a liability.
Yeah, but you know, in the UK, even if you sold your property and tried to get it into Bitcoin, because the on-off ramps are so tricky, it would be very, very hard to do that.
Yes, I know. The thing is, if you acquire some Bitcoin and wait for 10 years, it will be worth, almost regardless of how much you acquired, it will be worth whatever your house is worth. And you can just choose to sell the house and not sell the Bitcoin. And there you've solved the problem. And by the way, I prefer buying and selling Bitcoin to individuals rather than institutions. So stay off the exchanges. Like people always talk about how important it is to take your coins off the exchanges and like to do that. But I think what's even more important is to not sell your coins to exchanges. The last place on earth you want your coins to end up in is an exchange. You want to send it, you want to sell it to your family and to your friends and to people you care about, so that coins are still in that sphere. If you sell them to an exchange, the exchange will sell them to Michael Saylor or to Marapool or something like that. And no, like, sell it to a friend if you need to sell it, or buy something for it.
Yep. Oh, I pay my beautician in Bitcoin.
What's a beautician?
A beautician. So someone that does nails and eyelashes and all that kind of malarkey. So yes, I've got a beautician who I pay in Bitcoin, and she has gone through. She's a brilliant use case, actually, because all the pitfalls that people fall into, she has, and it's almost like a good learning experience for me of how newbies approach this. So, for example, I was just, to make it super easy, and I know that there are going to be lots of purists out there that go, oh my God, don't use that. But I was sending it to her on Wallet of Satoshi, and then it was building up. And so obviously I'm just like, you have to get it into cold storage. The brilliant thing is she is a kind of effectively a single mum with 2 young kids, came out of a terrible relationship, didn't have much money. She's the perfect person for this, where she needs her own little stack. Then what she did was she finally got it off her Wallet of Satoshi, but for some weird reason, she decided to send it to an exchange first before send it. So I was just like, you literally had KYC free Bitcoin, and then you go and send it to Kraken because a football daddy told you to do it. And then you send it to cold storage. And I'm like, okay, all right, fine. Okay, chill out, Suze. She's done it. So where's your seed phrase? On a bit of paper in my drawer. So I'm like, so well, what should I do with it then? Well, you need to stamp it into metal for a start. She's like, are you serious? Like, she thinks, like, luckily she knows me. But it's like, as soon as I sent her the thing of like how to stamp it, she was just like, this is ridiculous. But she gets it. So she gets it stamped into metal. She's got it into cold storage. I've explained the whole UTXO thing. Like, I don't want her just drip feeding little transactions into it. But these are all the pitfalls that people, that they do. And then I said, well, where's your seed phrase now? You've got it stamped into metal. And she's like, it's in my bedside drawer. And I'm like, oh, okay. So if something happens to you, what's your action plan? How do you get this to your kids? Because she hasn't told her current partner, like, it's hers. She doesn't, I don't think she necessarily wants to tell him about it just because of past experiences. And so I have to talk through things like, what is the action plan? Who knows about it? Who do you trust to find that seed phrase when the time is right? But it's only through going through this process with someone who's got a curiosity, is intelligent, and has an understanding of Bitcoin and crypto. And even then, there's a million different pitfalls.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Like, you have to figure out what works best for you. Like, if the biggest risk is an outside risk, or if the biggest risk is yourself. I think most people underestimate how their own brain is a risk factor in this, because you forget PIN codes, you forget seed phrases, you forget where they are, you forget all sorts of things like that. So no, Bitcoin custody it's hard. It's hard, and as much as I love the steel plates, there's also a steel plate the whole point is that it's indestructible. But that means you can't destroy it either very easily. Like, so at some point you want them on a piece of paper so you can easily burn that piece of paper and if you're being attacked, like, and have a backup somewhere else. If you have a seed plate, that seed plate is like, it's easier to steal. It's like stealing a gold bar, right? So point is, yes, use the seed plate, but hide it well. Like, it's much more obvious what that thing is than what a poorly written poem on a piece of paper is that just happens to have 12 words in it, you know?
Yeah. And when she moved house recently as well, the first question I asked her was, where is your seed phrase? And she's like, don't worry, it's safe.
The correct answer is go fuck yourself, Susie.
She should have said that.
Shouldn't.
But the thing is I need to make sure, because at the moment in her head, she's thinking, a couple £100. But what I had to do to make her really understand the value of it, because for her, it's a small amount of money right now. I mean, it's not small. So I did an illustration of, if I got my eyelashes done every 3 weeks for the next year, and I paid you this much with Bitcoin at its current price, if it goes to 1 million in 2030, this is how much it's going to be worth. And by laying it out and explaining it to her like that, she suddenly understood. And then I said to her, if that seed phrase was worth £10 million, would you have it on a piece of paper in your bedside cabinet drawer? No. So, you know, for us, it's obvious. We've been through this. We've followed all of these processes. But for people at the beginning of their journey who are so entrenched in the current system, it's not obvious to them. And I do think that we need to be a little bit kinder as maxis when it comes to, not you, I know you won't be.
Well, I'm kind, am I not? But I think there's a correlation between, this is an observation I made in the Bitcoin space. So there's a correlation between agreeableness and how early you were into Bitcoin. So the first wave was like the most disagreeable fuckers on the planet. Like they just couldn't agree on anything. And that's why Bitcoin works. Like, because you needed that to get to the whole, how do we build a system for enemies? Like, how do we build something that everyone just thinks the other guy will cheat them all the time? And so you needed that. And then as we go on, so you get your aggressively disagreeable people in the beginning, and wave after wave, you get more and more agreeable people, and you don't get to your Susie's and Joe Halls and whatever and Luke's until later on. And I'm somewhere in the middle there.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see it.
No, you can't.
I can see it.
I'm just being disagreeable for disagreeableness' sake.
I know you are. It's because that's what you do so well.
Yeah. No, it isn't. And so on and so forth. So,
I love that. You Susie's and you Joe Hall. You couldn't, and then you Luke. You couldn't get a lovelier little, his videos are so good, aren't they? I love them. Did you see his one on crypto scams?
Yeah, I loved it. And I know he's great. I just love the guy, and we have loads of fun together because we see each other every now and then. I think Joe is the one who introduced the term traveling circus. Our little bunch who see each other every now and then at the conferences, that we're really just a traveling circus of these weirdos that happen to do stuff with one another.
Yeah, it's like
in
going
a different
on
country
holiday
every time. Like,
yeah, going on holiday with your mates, but just like in a different location every time.
Yeah, that's great. By the way, let's go into that. Like, are you going to any conferences this year? And if so, which ones?
So
I know one.
Yes. I'm so excited about that. I can't tell you. Like, I'm so pleased that Freddie and I are going to be going to that. It's going to be brilliant. Are you excited?
Of course I am. I'm co-organizing it. If we're talking about the same one, that is. We haven't spliced that up. Yeah, right. So Susie is coming to Helsinki, so to BTC Hell. So another reason to come and see Helsinki in late August or mid-August, I mean.
What's the weather like?
It sucks. It's fucking Finland. Of course it does. No, actually it doesn't suck, those specific dates. I would say that in August, if you're going to Scandinavia, go in August. It's the only month that is practically like any other country on Earth, except actually warm countries. But it's the best weather you find in Finland is in August.
You can't guarantee it anywhere, though. Did you remember when we were at Baltic Honey Badger in July?
Was it in July? It's always in August or September.
Was it August?
Yeah.
Last year?
Yeah. And it was still crap. It always rains.
It was awful. I turned up with all my summer dresses and my little canvas shoes, and I was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was wet. So, but what are you going to, before you go to Helsinki, is there anywhere else?
Yeah, so we've got Vegas.
Oh, you're going to Vegas. All right.
Are you going to Vegas?
No.
Oh,
No.
why not?
I don't do fiat conferences. I do Bitcoin conference.
Yeah.
No, jokes aside, several reasons. I'm going to plenty of other conferences, and I've already been to Colombia and El Salvador and Sydney this year. So, like, my family don't allow me to go to that many countries on different continents in a single year.
Yeah, no, definitely understood. Baltic Honey Badger. Are you going to Baltic Honey Badger this year?
I think I am. It was just announced that the Budapest conference I was going to is being postponed indefinitely. So
it'll
be Riga instead. Yeah.
Oh, do you know what? I'm really glad to hear that because the dates clashed.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate, and I think that's sad. I'm sad that they had to postpone the conference in Budapest, but I'm also happy that I'm going to Riga because it's my favorite conference, to be honest. I mean, that's where it all started for me, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Actually, I missed out. We've got, we are announcing a Bitcoin Humanitarian Alliance, Bitcoin Policy UK with the Human Rights Foundation in London on the 10th of April. So we've got an event to invite lots of the media and politicians and people so that they can come along to the Frontline Club in April and see how Bitcoin is being used for humanitarian purposes. That's going to be a huge one.
Yeah, and since you're going to Riga, you're going to Helsinki right after, I guess, and with joining us for the days in between. They'll be fun too, I guess.
Yeah, you'll be sick of me.
I think that's impossible. So, yes. Is there anywhere else you want, or anything we haven't brought up that you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so.
So, anywhere you want to send our listeners to on the internet in particular?
Yes, definitely. We have just recently relaunched our website. So now all of our proof of work is in one place. And now we can see it all laid out. It's actually phenomenal considering we're a volunteer organisation. If anyone wants to go and have a look, we've got a section on mining, on policy, on education. And you just have to type into Google Bitcoin Policy UK or go to the website bitcoinpolicy.uk. And just having all of our work in one place, I'm really proud of it. The team behind Bitcoin Policy UK are phenomenal.
So definitely check that out. And how can people find you?
You can look me up on Twitter at decentralacies.
Decentralacies, yes. That sounds like you're everywhere and at once, which is sort of like ping-ponging these conferences. And if you're going to any of these conferences, you should use code Infinity for 10% off your ticket. That usually works, especially in Helsinki, I'd say. So, with that, Susie, thank you very much for this conversation. I had a lot of fun and looking forward to seeing you soon. Any last words?
Just thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant. It's a real privilege to come on your podcast. Thank you.
Oh, you're too kind. It's a privilege for me to have you here, or for us to have you here. So with that, this has been the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thanks for listening.